Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You could tweet me at rbowlesbyjr, or you could tweet the network at Greater STL SN. We're going to talk some Cardinals. We're going to get to Lawrence Phillips. We're going to get to a little hometown rundown. And then a potpourri of things to come after that. Well, we're going to start it with the playoffs, the NHL playoffs. The St. Louis Blues was against the Minnesota Wild, and it all started Thursday at the Scott trade. And it was kind of a lull for the Blues in that game. It did seem as they were as energized as Minnesota was. Minnesota looked a lot faster than the Blues than any team has looked against the Blues this season. And I was going to get into a complaint about Hitch kind of switching up the lines again, getting some new look lines out there, putting Tarasenko with Scene again like he did in the last game. But we'll get to why that might not be so big a deal as we go on. But the Blues just couldn't get him going in the first two periods. And in the playoffs, you can't have them kind of lulls. It's kind of like, that they're consistent for doing it in the first period. But in this game, they did it for the first two. And it started early as less than 3 minutes into the game, Minnesota scored on a wraparound goal on a puck that maybe Allen should have had, but I don't think he exactly knew where the puck was at. So once the guy got around the goal and wrapped around, it was kind of hard for Allen to get to the spot to get the goal. And then in the second, the Wild score again. They score again on the power play to make it 2-0. And this was the period that really kind of started to show that maybe Minnesota's got something over the Blues is they got more shots off. They blocked a lot more shots. They got a lot more hits into the Blues. And this just wasn't the same as the Blues team. Not even the fourth line seemed as physical as they usually do. And it just seemed like some of the lines weren't mixing as well as they might have hoped. Now, the third period, the Blues did start to regain some composure and get back into this game. Schwartz scored a goal, assist from Shattenkirk and Berglund. And this is when the Blues kind of started to put on a rush. And it was towards the end of the third period. That lull from the first two periods came back in the third period to begin it. But after that, after the first probably 5 minutes or so, the Blues really got to it. But they kind of put themselves at a deficit that they couldn't come back from, as they had to pull their goalie with 18:47 into the third period. They scored an empty netter, the Wild did, made it 3-1. And the Steen and Tarasenko line kind of got to it on the penalty kill. It's from a face-off, and right from the face-off in seconds, Steen scores. Makes it 3-2 Wild. Tarasenko and Shattenkirk again on the assist. And you thought the Blues maybe had a chance, but you knew it was just too late. It was 19:01 into the third when he scored, so 59 seconds left in the game. And you have to pull your goalie to get the extra man. Plus, the Blues were on the penalty kill at the time. So a dumb penalty late in the game leads to something where the Blues couldn't get into it with maybe a 5-on-5 rush. As it was stated before the series, Zach Parise of the Wild was saying the new 3-on-2 is the new 4-on-3. So if you could have got something going, maybe sent the 4 forwards out there and the 1 defenseman, you still could have kept your goalie in. And not what led to the 4-2 score, because the Wild ended up having to score the Wild ended up scoring another empty netter because the Blues had to pull their goalie just to make it a 5-on-5, just to make it even skaters. But you still lose your goalie, which always leads to easy goals. But the first period thing has to stop. And this game, the Blues took it to the second period. So you got to start these games right in the playoffs. It's not like the season where you could go 60 minutes and kind of play your game. These teams are coming out and they're coming out to score. Well, Saturday's game kind of flipped it around, and kind of why I'm not going to complain about the lines too much. As after Minnesota went one up in the series, the second game was on Saturday. And the Blues started this game out with Backes, Oshie, and Reeves out there. And that just kind of seemed that the Blues were going to go at it early. You kind of seen it right there, what was going to happen. That they were going to go at it early. Putting Reeves out there with the first liners. That Reeves ain't out there to score. And we all know that. And well, that new look line with Steen on it started off the Blues in the first period. Tarasenko with assist from Steven Stasny made it 1-0 Blues. And the Blues kept it up. And when they went back to the lines, the original lines, that fourth line was out there getting it. And you've even seen players like Oshie hitting. Stasny's not a big hitter hitting. Jaskin hitting. Jaskin actually leads the team in hits throughout the 2 games in the series so far. So guys that you might not see out there that you don't think of being the big hitters were out there doing it for the Blues. But the Blues got right back to it in the second and was on a crazy shot by Tarasenko in a position that most people don't shoot from. But obviously he had an eye as the Minnesota goalie kind of pulled out thinking a pass was coming out. And Tarasenko snuck it right by him off the side of the net, made it 2-0 for the Blues. Well, then we get to the third period, and 1:46 in the Wild score. And this period kind of looked like the first 2 periods for the Blues in the first game. As the Wild went after it, and went after, and went after the Blues. And it was shot after shot. There was a couple shots that just missed, or shots that went off the post, that went off the crossbar. David Backes had to save a goal in that game. The goal that went off the crossbar. He had to knock it out of the net. Allen ended up covering it up for the save. And it just looked at 2-1 that it was over for the Blues. That game was easily gonna be tied, and it was gonna be tied quickly. And you were hoping that Minnesota didn't gain the momentum to where they could have just took that momentum in to win the game. And this game got to the right way with a guy that people say that can't do it, that the Blues need to get rid of, the whipping boy as I call him, as Patrick Berglund ended up saving the day. As in that third period, after just an onslaught by Minnesota, there was a puck that was tipped on the way to the goal, and it didn't make it to the net, and the defense got it out of there. Berglund drove to the net. Blues got the advantage. Berglund scores. Hitch said after the game that that's the guy that we want taking that shot. He wasn't going to pass in that situation, and that's good for us. And after that onslaught, you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know what was going to go on. And that Berglund goal in that third period, assisting from Schwartz, put the Blues up good enough. And then the Blues kind of hit it hard from there. And it was the first probably 10 minutes of that third period, it was Minnesota's game to have. But that last 10 minutes, the Blues stepped up and showed that they could be physical, and then they can get the plays going. Now the Blues do end up winning 4-1 as Tarasenko's coming out party ended up with a hat trick. He scored an empty netter over the assist from Laterra. And I said on Twitter after this game, number 1, thank you, Bergie. Number 2, I think someone might have just had his coming out party. And that's what you're hoping right here for Tarasenko, is that maybe he's just going to cut loose now. He seemed a little tentative in the first game, and he was shooting the puck. You can look at the stats, it'll say he had no shots, and I think that line only had 1 shot total, but a lot of them shots were blocked. A lot of that shot was Minnesota getting to the net and getting in front of their goalie, blocking the shots, getting down the ice. But on the first goal, he was the one being physical down by the net, and Steen shut the shot from the blue line, and he tips it in. So this kind of looks like a series where everybody's going to have to step up and be physical for their teams to win. So the Blues tie the series 1-1, split the games at home. It's not what you always want to do, but you have to get one at home. If you're going to start the series at home, you have to get that first one at home. Just like you do if you start the series on the road. If you're the road team, you want to get that one on the road for when you come home. That series is tied 1-1, and you can leave your home crowd with the 2 lead advantage. The Blues really here just need to get one, come back 2-2, win here, then hope you win in Minnesota in Game 6. And it's going to be tough because the way the Wild are playing, they're kind of playing the Blues game. We're kind of the physical game, the getting down and getting in front of the shots, kind of bumping and grinding around the net to get goals. But I think what you did in the second game by starting Reeves, you should instead start Steve Ott with that first line, whatever that first line is going to be, whether it be Laterra, Tarasenko, and started off the game back as an Oshie, Stastny, or somebody, Stastny and Berglund. Because I think he's starting to get into Minnesota's heads. You've seen in that second game, he's patting people on the head. He's getting in the face every chance he gets. And maybe he could be in Minnesota's head so far that he gets an early power play for the Blues. He gets Minnesota the trip up. Even though he has been walking that fine line along with the rest of the Minnesota players in between doing something effective for your team and getting a penalty. But you kind of hope that he's so far in their head that they come out on the road trying to get it in their hometown, trying to start off the physical play and the offense early, and maybe Ott goes in there and plays with them and gets in their head physically. The thing for the Blues is to come home 2-2, though. And that's the big thing here, definitely with the goalie you got in a rookie goalie. Because you can't bring him back home 3-1 and hope he gets it done. And you can't bring Elliott in now. You can't bring Elliott. If Minnesota goes up 3-1, you can't bring in Elliott now. You probably be number one with he hasn't got any play, so he does need to work, but this is the wrong time to get it. And then you can probably mess up both their heads by doing that. Elliott, like, oh, you didn't want me now, but now you want me in now, And then Allen the same way. Like, Allen's like taking out a rookie, taken out because he couldn't get the job done. How's that going to get in his psyche, and how does it bring an Elliott back? How's it affect his psyche sitting on the bench? So, and I've said it before I've said it in the last, when Tarasenko and Steen were injured, that instead of these guys scoring the Reeves, Ott, and Gotch line, and that's what I said I wanted them to do, I think the physical play from that line has to set up for the rest of the game. I might, if I don't start Reeves or Ott this game, I might just throw that fourth line out there as the second line in the first period just to kind of slow Minnesota down while they're at home. And Minnesota's hockey town, so a hockey town, being up there in the north, that they're going to be rowdy. So you don't want to trip up while you're on the road and get it to where people are either thinking about bringing Elliott in or putting this rookie on the ropes and Jake Allen. So really, this is the game you want to kind of put them down in the first game. So the game tonight is the game to watch for this series, because if the Blues don't come out like they did in the second game, this might be Minnesota's series for the taking. And Dublik, their goalie, has been playing outstanding in this series. So you got to have the offense on tonight. You got to beat them in the physicality game. And you got to bring this, at least home tide, but mostly you got to try to bring this game tonight to set the series up in your favor. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with the Cardinals. I'm Robert Bowlesby. This is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the network at Greater STLSN. We're going to get in the week that was for the Cardinals, as it started off with the home opener last Monday. And this is a game where, after using your bullpen as Matheny did on the weekend, and I was going to say as Matheny does, this is a game where you had to get a strong start from your ace, Adam Wainwright. But the game just didn't even start off good for the Cardinals. And this might get back into not playing so many games and so many days with the rainouts and the off days to support the rainouts and blah, blah, blah. But just the game just started off bad for the Cardinals as the first hit of the game reached an error by Colton Wong. And as usual, errors to start off games or to start off innings or in general just lead to runs. And the Brewers went up 1-0 in the first. And Wainwright's having a little trouble with the leadoff hitters. And I don't know if maybe he just knows his pitchers are strong enough that when he goes to that second guy, he can get the ground ball. Or he's just giving their best pitch and saying, here, hit it. But another leadoff runner came on to lead off the second. And he ended up scoring to put the Brewers up 2. Now, one of the ones was only one run allowed by Wainwright, so it was good that he actually kind of worked around that leadoff arrow and allowing the 1 run. But you can't always work around leadoff hits because in a game, it's very easy to get guys from base to base. As the Cardinals have proved over the year, being the one and only base-to-base team in the league, that leadoff hits and stuff like that's going to score. Well, the Cardinals do cut into that lead in the bottom of the third. A leadoff double by Carpenter. And you'll see how he progressed as this week went on. Leads to an RBI ground out and later on in the inning by Matt Adams, makes the score 2-1. Now this is where errors get some help for the Cardinals, as Wong made the error in the first, led to a run for the Brewers. Now this error leads to a run for the Cardinals. Cardinals tied the game on a Wainwright attempted sacrifice, which should have been a double play as Molina was getting thrown out at third. Shortstop Gene Segura had to take the throw from the third baseman. He ended up throwing an errant throw to first. A run scores. Wainwright went to second, and the score is tied. Well, Wainwright and Garza kind of got into a little bit of a pitcher's duel after that. The scoring didn't ceased it until the 6th, as another leadoff hit from Wainwright, a double, led to another run. And 2 runs ended up scoring that inning, and they ended up making the score 4-2. The score became 5-2 in the 7th on another error by Colton Wong. And this is something you got to kind of store away in that sense, is we don't really have anybody to back up Wong except for Pete Kozma. And can you take that bat out of the lineup? When you aren't showing any power or getting any hits that lead to runs if you're the Cardinals? The Cardinals do come back to make the score 4-2. Adams and Peralta both with RBIs in the game. Now, you like to see what happened in the game for Colt Wong at the hitter's box. So that what I was attending to with that bat, as he had 3 walks in the game. So obviously he's seen a lot of pitches and see where they're going to go. So can you take when you're not producing the runs, Cardinals were 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position. Can you take a guy that can maybe hit you a home run, get you an extra base hit to score some runs, and a speedy edge? Can you take that out of the game for just defense? And he has had trouble in the past defensively, so you kind of hope this doesn't get into the future. Wainwright did go 7 innings. He allowed 8 hits, though. Allowed for 3 earned runs, 5 runs total, but 3 of them were only earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. So it was nice to see him get deep in a game for a team that needed it, and your ace is going to do it, and he's not going to come out of the game. If he knows what this team needs, he's going to go out there and get it. But it was nice to see the 2 hits of Carpenter, Halladay, and Peralta also, as maybe the offense is starting to turn around a little bit for the Cardinals going into later in the week. Now, the Cardinals were off Tuesday. Again, really for no reason, but for rainouts, blah, blah, blah. But after this stretch, though, of these games, when I get to it, the Cardinals are going to have like 20 games in 21 days. So hopefully you get into a stretch where your offense gets going. Because as of right now, your pitching doesn't need to. As the Cardinals played on Wednesday, on Jackie Robinson Day in the big leagues, and the Cards scored in the first as Carpenter started it off with a leadoff single, a Hayward double, and then a Matt Halladay single at the 2 RBIs put the Cardinals up 2-0 after 1. Cardinals scored again in the fourth on a leadoff hit by Peralta, a single by Jay, a Yadier Molina single scores an RBI, puts the Cardinals up 3. The Cardinals get a 2-out RBI, this time a double by Carpenter, RBI double to make it 4-1. Game ends 4-2. Now Lance Lynn pitched where you wanted him to pitch, and maybe this is where he throws a lot of pitches, kind of feels out where he was, like I kept saying about the spring training for all these pitchers that didn't pitch. Because the Cardinals had to lose 6 relievers in this game, including Rosie, who gets to save. He allowed that second earned run in the ninth. Lynn went 5 innings, allowed 6 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 4 Ks. So not the quality start per se, but a quality start going 5 innings, allowing 1 run. And the bullpen has been okay at times, but they've been better as we moved on. And it was 6 relievers to get the last 4 innings through. So another time where Matheny used a lot of relievers, even though he probably had to, because this is probably where a game that Lynn couldn't go the 5 innings. So you need another start the next day from your starter, John Lackey, and he did it for the Cardinals against the Brewers. He went 7 innings, allowed 5 hits, 0 runs. The Cardinals win 4-0. He also had 8 strikeouts in the game, and this was a pitcher's duel really until the 6th inning when a 1-out single by Halladay, RBI, scores Matt Carpenter, who doubled in this game also. And then with 1 out, that speedster Matt Halladay stole the base for a second steal of the season. Johnny Peralta comes up to put runners at the corners. And Mark Reynolds, who started the game, doubles. He scores Halladay. Peralta's thrown out at home. Cardinals get their 4th and final run to make it 4-0 on another 2-out double by Carp, his 4th of this season. Scores Colton Wong, who also doubled in the inning. So it's nice to see that we're starting to get extra base hits from Carpenter. And like I said, Wong, you can't take that offense out of there. So you had your bullpen used the day before, and a guy like Lackey knows this kind of stuff. And he goes out there and gets his job done. And he does it efficiently with the 7 innings, the no runs, and the 8 Ks. Only 1 walk. So you can see the staff is starting to build up. As the next day, Michael Walker essentially did the same thing. He went 7 innings, and this was against the Reds on Friday. He went 7 innings, allowed 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 Ks. giving your bullpen essentially another day off. Now, this game was kind of cool as it was the 70th anniversary of Red Shady's being in uniform. The Cardinals went out there and gave him a flag, all celebrated with him. Now, that one-run by Walker was again from another Joey Votto home run as he killed the Cardinals last week. He came back this week and started off again. But the Cardinals came back in the first, and another double by Carpenter. At least the Cardinals tied it at 1 on a sacrifice fly by Johnny, on a Holiday sacrifice fly. And Matt Carpenter, playing as hard as he does, seen the ball come in and literally jumped over the catcher and touched home plate to score that run. Now, this was another pitching duel. This was Cueto, who Walker's already had to face twice this season. This would be his second time. Beat him the first time. So scoring was ceased until the 7th when Holiday led off with a single. A one-out double by Peralta. An intentional walk to John Jay loaded the bases for Yadier Molina, who doubled all three of them home to put the Cardinals up 4-1. And here goes Carpenter again, as he did it again in the 8th with a leadoff double. A one-out walk to Holiday. Adams actually comes up and hits a ball to second base, and it was very hard hit to a very sure guy in Brandon Phillips. Ball actually goes off of him. They call it an error. Adams does get the RBI, makes it 5-1. Score ends up being 6-1. And Kevin Seagrass came in, finished it out for the last 2 innings for his first career save. So this was the kind of the 2-2-2 game for Carpenter. 2 hits, 2 doubles, 2 runs. And this is again as he's showing what he can do when he gets a chance. And it's kind of seemed like with this new approach, he's going after the pitches, even though he's still working the counts down with a lot of foul balls and looking at a lot of pitches. So it's kind of changing his approach from last year where he wasn't getting all these big extra base hits. And they're leading the runs. And that's what leadoff hits do, as was saying against the game of Wainwright. If he could do this like he did 2 years ago, and I'm not saying get the 55 doubles, but maybe get the 40, 45, and hit 300, this could help the other hitters get into their stretch. Well, the Cardinals did play Saturday, and the Cardinals again got another strong start from Carlos Martinez. Cardinals win 4-1, and another leadoff double from Carpenter leads to a run. So, like I said, this could always help out. And the RBI came in with 2 outs on a hit by Adams. So 2 out hits lead to run, build up your stats of runners in scoring position. And that's what the Cardinals need if they're going to have their guys hitting, like Holiday and Adams, not the fastest guys, to kind of get to move around. You're going to have hits with 2 outs, a lot of 2 outs hits, and a lot of hits with runners in scoring position. Well, this was Jason Hayward home run day for the Cardinals. He finally hit his first home run for the Cardinals. That put him up by 2. Cardinals go up 3-0 in a 4th on an RBI double by Molina. The Reds try to come back in the 5th, a home run by Zach Cozart, makes it 3-0. Cardinals score again in the 6th on another RBI double by Carpenter. Makes it 5-1. Pete Kozma, John Jay score. Brandon Phillips does end up getting an RBI later in the game. Makes it 5-2. Rosie shuts it down in the 9th. His 4th save of the year. And another game for Carpenter, showing his big strength. And it's just going to keep going down the stretch. It's led to Sunday's game. The only bad thing about Sunday's game, from what we heard, was that Russell Grichuk had a back injury. He was placed on the 15-day DL. Dean Anna utility infielder and part-time outfielder, replace him as at least you got a left-hander on the bench now, because when you didn't have it, there's situations you probably could have used it in. And I think you said it the other night, they brought up Adams against the right-hander, and they switched real quick to a left-hander, which brought up Borges. So maybe this is a good way not to sit Adams in them type of situations. Have Adams playing the 162 and having a left-hander on the bench for now. Not playing at 162, at least playing the 15 days for now. While Anna's up, it could be that guy to kind of go up there, get the left-hander to come out, and here comes Mark Reynolds. The Carpenters started again for the Cardinals on Sunday Night Baseball. Adam Wainwright pitching in this one. And he starts it off with a leadoff home run and give the Cardinals a 1-0 lead. The Reds do it up, tying it. And the Cardinals, the score doesn't go score again until the 8th on a sac fly. The Cardinals go up 2-1. Wainwright ends up finishing the game pitching 8 innings. This was another pitcher's duel. Mike Leake in the game. He also went 8 innings for a complete game, essentially. But Adam Wainwright going out there with basically 4 back-to-back starts, or where your starters had quality starts. He going to 8 innings, shuts down your bullpen again for another day, to where they don't wear down maybe like Rosenthal did last season. So it's nice to see him, your staff, with another 2 ERA, 11 games in the season. Cardinals are 8-3. So that just shows you when you have another 2 ERA and 11, the Cardinals would probably be 10-1 because on the bad game, the 5-run game, had a bunch of errors, so there was only 3 earned runs. But you're starting to see that little side of the lineup kind of creep up. Wong getting out there getting some hits. Hayward getting that home run. Adams had some RBIs this week. Wong and him are still batting kind of low. John Jay also batting kind of low. But they are getting the hits at the timely times when the Cardinals need them. But with Carp stepping up, Holiday hitting over 300, even though it's a lot of singles. We were worried about Yadi's weight because in the first few games it seemed like he couldn't hit. He's starting to hit. So maybe there's a stretch where we kind of relieve some of these pitchers not to go out there and have to do this every game. I mean, the most runs you allowed this week were 3. So it's nice seeing that from what going into spring training, maybe a weekend with some injuries, and also the Jaime Garcia injury, the Michael Wacha injury from last season, and what Carlos Martinez can do, kind of going out here showing they're the best starting rotation right now. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk some Lawrence Phillips, maybe throw some Aaron Hernandez in there along with it. I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. And I maybe went a little too short with the Blues and went a little long with the Cardinals. But I'm just kind of waiting for tonight's game, I guess. I want to see it. I want to see the Blues go out there and see how the series might finish out. Because it's time for the Blues to step up. And a lot of these players, too, the Bergmans, the Beckless, the Oshies, the Steens, it's time for them to start stepping up. And it's also time for Tarastico to keep doing his thing and kind of show where he's at, which he did Saturday night. So let's do it again tonight. Let's get into their head. And hopefully this Nashville-Chicago series goes real long, all 7 games, and if we do get Chicago or Nashville, that they're wore out by the time we get to us. And the Blues can run over them into the Western Conference Finals and hopefully to the Stanley Cup. Well, I want to talk about this little Lawrence Phillips situation. Lawrence Phillips, former first round, number 6 draft pick by the St. Louis Rams way back in 1996. Lawrence Phillips, 39, is suspected of killing his 37-year-old cellmate, Damian Soward, who's actually related to an NFL player. Soward was found unresponsive last Saturday and died later at a local hospital. Phillips entered this prison in Delano, California in 2008, serving a sentence of 31 years for domestic violence and false imprisonment, also vehicle theft. Phillips was placed as a separate unit pending the outcome of this investigation. Now I'm just going to read over some of the things he did and then get to what he got charged for. After Nebraska, first, he allegedly beat up his girlfriend twice, where he was kicked off the team once and brought back, and wasn't even named the starter when he was brought back. So he started off at college, brought it to the Rams. He didn't get too much big trouble with the Rams, but didn't want to show up to the meetings, wanted to leave early. And Rich Brooks, who drafted him, was later fired, and Dick Vermeil came in and tried to kind of revive his career. And then he goes and does the assault case, gets the assault case, more assault cases, and stuff like that. So finally, a teary-eyed Dick Vermeil had to release him, a guy who probably wouldn't release a soul on this planet if he didn't really have to, and said that Lawrence Phillips was the greatest running back he ever seen. He then went to the Dolphins and was released by the Dolphins after playing no contest after he assaulted a woman in a nightclub. He then played in NFL Europe, stayed kind of quiet over there, and then came to the 49ers, where he wasn't showing up for practices and meetings and leaving the team and things like that. He then went to the CFL. In 2003, he was released out there after being charged with a sexual assault. He then was found guilty in 2006 of 10 years for running over teenagers with his car after a pickup game of football. He was then later found guilty for 25 years of the domestic assault, the false imprisonment, and the vehicle theft. So it kind of shows you what habitual players do, habitual offenders do. They just keep doing it. They don't stop. You can look at Aaron Hernandez, who supposedly first killed these people and 2 people in Boston, and then killed his girlfriend, I think it was his girlfriend or his sister's fiance in Florida. He was a semi-pro athlete. So it kind of sees, once these guys start doing it, they're just not going to stop. There's some guys that do, but they don't do the crimes that murder and then, beating a woman. And then later on, when he gets released from the Dolphins for beating a woman in a club. So this kind of shows you what these kind of guys do. They just don't stop. He can't even stop when he's already locked up for 31 years. The guy he killed's actually locked up for life, so that guy's never leaving. And yet he still kills this guy when he's going to get out. And he's not going to get out until he's 60 years old or so, but he couldn't stop himself. Just like Aaron Hernandez couldn't stop himself from killing Nolan Lloyd. I mean, you find out that Aaron Hernandez is in a gang and he's got boxes in his basement and he's moving them all around, having his girlfriend moving them around, having a gun walking around his place. They find his DNA on a joint at the crime scene. He was never there, though, until the trial. Then in the trial, he was all of a sudden there, and that was through his lawyer saying he was there. So guys like Lauren Phillips and Aaron Hernandez, but you didn't know about Aaron Hernandez until it happened. And Nebraska probably didn't know about Lawrence Phillips until it happened. But the Rams knew from Nebraska. So, and also the Dolphins and the 49ers. So it could have stopped a long time ago with him. And maybe he should have been put away before that. That's kind of what happens with these athletes is they just get away with so much. They just think they can keep doing it and they're going to just get away forever. Now, these are two guys that can prove to some of these athletes that think that they can just go out here and do whatever they want, that it stops at some point. Well, I wanted to look at the 96 draft and when we drafted Lawrence Phillips. And this is some of the players that were drafted. First overall, Keyshawn Johnson, star wide receiver for the Jets, the Bucks. Jonathan Ogden, who I think is a Hall of Famer now, but great offensive tackle, one of the best in the game. He was drafted third. Number 14th was Eddie George. This will kind of mess you up too, even though Marvin Harrison ended up being one of them guys that didn't look as good as he did on the field when he had his little shooting incident at his car wash. He was drafted 19th. Eddie Kennison was drafted number 18 by the Rams. 26th was Ray Lewis. In the second round, number 34, Amani Toomer. Number 35, Mike Allstott. Number 36, Laurie Malloy. In that round, at 42, the Rams drafted Tony Banks. 59 drafted Ernie Conwell. 61st in that draft was Brian Dawkins, the star safety. In the third round, you had a receiver in Terrell Owens, drafted by the 49ers. And in the fifth round, you had Zach Thomas. I won't name the rest of the rounds for the Rams because I don't know who these people are. So you could kind of tell that Rich Brooks maybe wasn't that talent for how he might have been in college because he was nowhere near that in the NFL. Missing on Marvin Harrison. There wasn't really no big quarterbacks in that draft. So Tony Banks might have been the only guy you could have went out and got at that time. But there was, third round T.O., fifth round a linebacker like Zach Thomas, and the Rams did draw some defensive guys in that round. Ray Lewis was in that draft, 26th. You could have traded down, maybe got some more picks out of it. It kind of shows you where that staff was at when they drafted a guy like Lawrence Phillips. And hopefully this team can move past that point with this tenure as their drafts haven't looked much better than that 96 draft. All right, we're going to get on potpourri of topics next. Start off with the hometown rundown. This is the sports blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. And welcome back to the sports blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. I'm Robert Bowlesby. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. We're going to start the final segment with a little hometown rundown as the St. Louis Tech played on Saturday in Marion, Ohio against the Marion Blue Racers, losing 33-29. Even with Keenan Davis's 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half, the Tech couldn't hold the lead, and the Blue Racers scored with 6:05 left in the game to take the lead 32-39, end up winning 33-29 for the win. These two teams will meet again on the 24th of April, 7:35 at the St. Charles Family Arena. Not many home games left for their Tech, so get out there and support a local entity. This does run the Tech's record down to 2-2, excuse me, though. So get out there, support them, and they'll put a good show on for you. St. Louis FC also played this week, and they were at home at St. Louis Soccer Park in Fitton. They lost 1-0 against the Rochester, New York Rhinos. The game was scoreless until the 78th minute when the Rhinos scored their goal to put them up 1 and to win the game. They remain undefeated. It was another near sellout crowd out there at the park at 5,001. But they saw the St. Louis FC, the St. Louis Football Club, record go down to 1-2-1. FC will play again, but they'll be in Oklahoma City against Oklahoma City Energy next Saturday. Their next home game is on May 9th against the Wilmington Hammerheads. Now, you might not know this guy, but he's a former SLU coach, and he has been with the Littlewin Lions college team in St. Charles for 6 seasons now, but he's now got another coaching job in Division I. That guy is Brad Soderberg, who didn't have a bad record after replacing Lorenzo Romar, who went to Washington. He had an 80-73 record at SLU. And he was a really good coach for Lindenwood, as he had a 127-57 record and 6 seasons with the Lions. So if you're into low-level college sports, and this is something to pay attention to. It's hard to follow all these college teams. It's nice to see a guy that with the SLU went down to maybe a level where he could have probably got a job in Division I before and coach up some of the kids on Lindenwood. So it's nice to also see him get a Division I job. And he will be missed, as you see by the record, at that Lindenwood College. Now for a little bit of this week in sports. And if I said that because it is mostly baseball, on April 13th of this week, Pete Rose collected his first hit back in 1963. April 15th, Jackie Robinson became the first African-American player in the big leagues. 1997, on this day, they retired the number 42 for the whole league. Only a select few got to keep it, including Mariano Rivera. In 2004, this day was named his day. On April 17th, back in 51, all-time Yankee great Mickey Mantle and voice of the Yankees for 55 years, Bob Shepard, both made their debut in New York. And on the 18th, Ted Williams became the first player to hit a home run in 4 different decades at the age of 42. So a little couple old school notes there on baseball. None of them when I was born, but hey, you do what you do when you look up some stuff. Now, there was a big fight for the UFC this weekend, as it was in New Jersey, as the main event held 185 title contenders Luke Rockhold against Lyoto Machida, who has held the title before. And I think his style is what gets him into trouble. Kind of dodging out of the way and trying to kind of conflict your sight with the way he got his hand movements. That's Machida. Rockhold didn't fall for it in this fight. He dominated the first round against Machida and ended up choking him out 232 to the second round for the win. Now, he could challenge for the title at MSG, the Madison Square Garden, if fights are ever sanctioned there. Now, that would be a big fight if Chris Weidman stays the champion till then, and they get the fight squared away. Before that fight, Rock Hall got fight of the night in front of the 13,000 plus crowd on hand. So probably not the fight you wanted to see, as UFC had moved them fights to 5 rounds after this was on Fox, after our Fox fight only went 1 round a couple years ago. So people do want to see the 5-round fights, but this is one where you've seen a guy come in and dominate a really good fighter. I think he was number 2 in that division. So I like seeing the young guys come up. I like Machida, but it's always cool to see different guys come up and fight for the title. It was kind of cool to see when Matt Serra won that little Tough Enough show or whatever. It's not Tough Enough, that's wrestling. But the one where they brought back all the old guys and gave him a chance for the title, and then he comes back and wins the title. That kind of stuff's kind of cool to me for some reason. That's just me. We're going to get to a little bit of some stadium stuff, and some reports came out on Friday. And this was from Sports Illustrated, as a St. Louis task force will meet with the NFL officials in New York next week, about on Wednesday, to talk about its plans to build a new stadium in St. Louis. The task force reps were appointed by Missouri Governor Jay Nixon. So obviously Pidcock and Bleaks and whoever they put together as their team. The NFL officials they will meet will include 6 NFL owners, and meeting with focus on their plans for a downtown St. Louis stadium. Now we'll get to something else. This came out the 16th of April. The vote on Carson Stadium could be as early as Tuesday to schedule an election or consider the plan without sending it forward to a vote after more than the 8,000 signatures that were needed to put it on a ballot were verified sufficient. Now, I looked for other news this week on that other stadium, the Hollywood Park Stadium, and didn't see nothing. So it's nice to see that the 2 stadiums in St. Louis wants to move forward, or is moving forward. And I just think this has to get to where we don't have to public vote this. Kind of what it said at Carson is the schedule a lesson or consider it a plan without sending it to a vote. We need something like that in St. Louis, because it's not going to happen here. But you need this plan to move forward to keep the team. I'm kind of hoping that before these other meetings hit in October, I think it is, the other owner meetings where they're going to unveil more and more stuff. Well, I guess I said October. I meant May. I think it's in May. That you get some kind of hint from the MLS who said they were wanting to expand. And hey, we might bring a team here, St. Louis, without really saying it. Which is kind of good seeing that the soccer park out there in Fenton is getting sold out. Or close to sold out, 5,000 people. That's an independent team. So if you have something downtown where you could prove that 40,000 people will show up for a Cardinals game, 25,000 will show up for a Blues game, and whatever the Rams stadium was 50,000, 47,000 too, whatever it is, that you could probably put enough people in the seats to support an MLS team too. And hopefully that somehow gets in there before we get to our plan, because that's just another thing that maybe the MLS team could say, hey, we'll throw a little money at this if you want to bring us here. We want to get into this. So I'm saying that they need to put in Stan Kroenke, say, hey, let me get into the stadium play, put some money into it, give us some money back. Because with a vote with this town, and with people wanting what they want, and if it doesn't benefit them in the greatest way possible, a vote's not going to go through. But obviously, if these guys are going next week to the NFL, they have a plan that doesn't involve vote, hopefully, or that they got the money, because they said that now they could build this around a privately financed stadium. So maybe there's already stuff that we don't know that hasn't come out yet. Maybe about an MLS team, or maybe about international soccer events, or maybe they got something going on with the monster trucks and all that oddness. It would be kind of cool to see an outdoor circus there, that big old stadium, big old field. Probably would never happen. It's usually they had them things indoors, but there'd be something different. But I want football. I don't know why I'm so hype on the football thing, why I like talking about the stadium so much, because I want the Rams here. And maybe it's because I don't get to watch every Cardinal game. I don't get to watch every Blues game. But it's really easy for me on Sundays to sit down and watch every Rams game. And maybe that's why I'm a little more invested in talking about it than I am not talking about it. Because I want football to stay. I don't think that if I could sit down and watch football, unless I got into the fantasy aspect, got into the one-day leagues, to sit down and watch a football game, which I am in a little of the one-day leagues. But it doesn't affect me as much as long as I got the Rams game on. I got something else to do, to where if I do lose some money off it, it doesn't really affect me. Or if I win some money on it, hey, Rams won, I got some money, that's cool, But I'm not all the way into that as wanting the football team here. And I wouldn't mind having a soccer team here, because it would probably be another inexpensive way to go see something rather than breaking a budget. So just something else for you to do, to take your kids to go out and see without having to spend, the probably $200+ it would take to just for 2 or 3 people to go to the Cardinal game. But I mean, if I had the money though, I would go to every Cardinal game. I'd probably buy season tickets over the Cardinal or over the Rams. But that might be just because of the winning aspect, just to see a winning team on the field. But I want football here, and I want this city to start thriving the way that it used to, and look the way it used to, and not just be some flyover city where people come here and see the city as a great city. They come here and put the dollars in the city to kind of help everybody else move up. That not only does it help the rich people going to the stadiums, but if you're putting money back into the city and stuff, it builds up the lower middle class and the middle class and people like that. So that's going to do it for today's show. We'll see you next week. I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this has been the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.